Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Christie. And today I've got an interview with Dr. Shane Lawlor. He's a chiropractor in Ireland. Him and I actually go back quite a bit in the golf profession and working with golfers all the way back. I think it was like 09, 2010. We were not necessarily crossing paths in person, but both were working with golfers. I was traveling the tour a bit in 2011. And he took it to a whole other level. And we're going to dive into a lot of different topics. You know, we'll get into some golf stuff and his experiences with that, but you can connect the dots to other things that you may be interested in and how he was able to do what he did and how he honestly has become an industry transformer in many ways. Everything from, traveling on tour for many years, working with the highest level of golfers, to his own practice with his wife and doing great there in Ireland. Teaching for ART, like a bunch of different things that we dive into, and a lot of great insights and some great Irish humor as well. So really fun interview, really excited to get to chat with him again it's been quite a while. And just to give a little bit of, just a little heads up there, we are across the pond, kind of far away there, and just a little bit of delay, nothing too bad, but you'll notice a couple times there. So don't let that impact you. Okay. Before we dive into this interview, I want to tell you about an opportunity that I have to speak in Washington, D.C. with Jay Greenstein and Joey Coleman and a few others. Really excited about it. It's a one-day in-person event in Washington, D.C., May 6th. And I'm actually really excited about speaking at this one. I think it's going to really put a lot together for all of you. Jay's going to talk a lot about leadership and team building. Joey's the expert in that customer experience / patient experience. I'm going to talk about actual marketing that you can apply throughout the entire patient life cycle. There's going to be tech talk. There's going to be money talk, like really just how to really improve the overall business of your practice and doing it in an ethical way. I know one thing I learned from interviewing Joey Coleman on my podcast a couple years ago was that being good at business as a doctor, it doesn't mean you have to be a shark or hard selling people. It means providing the highest level of patient experience. And part of that is going to be your clinical, but it's a lot of other things as well. And we're going to dive into that on May 6th. So check that out at bit.ly/biz adjustment, BIZ adjustment. And you can sign up for that. Very reasonable. I hope to see you there with some in-person event. All right, without further ado, here is my interview with Shane Lawlor. All right, welcome to the show, Shane. I really appreciate your time all the way across the pond there in Ireland. Excited to have you on. We've known each other for a while digitally, and this is our first time actually conversing through Zoom on video and enjoying a conversation around your practice, your professional life, and things that you've done. Before we do dive into that, tell our audience about yourself personally, professionally, and we'll go from there.
We'll give it a short story version.
Yeah.
I can't believe now it's nearly 17 years of practice. I graduated in 2006 from the University of Glamorgan at the time. Now it's the University of South Wales. So I graduated for what else would be known as the Welsh Institute of Chiropractic. And then from there, I was lucky enough to get a job an hour away. So my wife is also a chiropractor. We were going out at the time, so I needed to make sure I needed to stay close. So I worked in Bristol, which is an hour just across the pond, and just across the Severn Bridge in Western England. So it made my life a little easier. And then after 2.5 years, we left to go back home, and because I'm from Kerry, which is southwest, and then Karen's from northwest, and even though Ireland's a small country, it's a long drive in terms of going from those two states. So we set up somewhere in the middle. It's a town called Portlaoise, or technically we're in the Midlands, so we're an hour west of Dublin and an hour east of Limerick.
Yeah, that's a cool area for sure. Yeah. And do you guys practice together?
Yeah. During COVID, we were swapping shifts in terms of she was in one shift and then I was in the other, and then just we wanted to keep the kids out of childcare in terms of nobody knew about. And then from there, I came home, and I think pretty quickly I got an email from the British Chiropractic Sports Council. Now it would be the Royal College of Chiropractors Sports Faculty now is technically their name, but it was the British Chiropractic Sports Council. They were, and Dale Richardson, who's a chiropractor from Australia, was looking for a chiropractor to join his team called his company called Pro Golf Health. And I think that was in February of '09. And then I interviewed in May of '09, the Irish Open, the Shane Lawlor one. Now, Shane wasn't a client of Dale's or I at the time, but so it was quite strange. Then I ended up working with Shane for 5 or 6 years, 4 years full time. But and from there, I interviewed in till May '09, and then I think I worked my first. Trying to think what I did. There was certainly a training period. The first event I worked by myself was with Faldo at
Oh, that's
Sunningdale for the British Senior Open. So that was quite I mean,
yeah, that's really cool. And what was the name of the gentleman that started the pro golf one? Because I actually applied for that as well. What was his name?
Dr. Dale Richardson.
Yeah, I thought it was Dale
Yeah,
Richardson. I didn't want to get
yeah,
the first name wrong. I knew the last name was Richardson,
yeah,
and because that's where I think along those lines, you and I probably started to cross paths a little bit, at least digitally. I know, remember seeing the work you were doing. I was over here doing some stuff on the PGA Tour with some players, and you definitely took it to another level over there, which was cool to see. And we're gonna kind of dive into that today with the golf to use as a context for how our audience that may have other desires within the profession, like maybe other niches. It may not be golf. It could be pregnancy and pediatrics. It could be runners and triathletes. It could be fitness people. It could be general population. But I want to use your growth within this particular golf niche in the industry to show how if you do things right and you're really good at it, you can really grow exponentially. And so, are you down for that today?
yeah. I mean, the most common question I've been asked through all of media in person is, how do I get on tour? So people assume, well, I was a young chiropractor when I got hired, but irrespective of whatever your niche is,
Mm.
um, there's a certain level of work that has to be done.
There
You've got
is,
to,
and
yeah,
yeah, I think you and I were a little bit fortunate where it came a little bit earlier, but it wasn't like it happened right away,
no,
and it took a ton of effort. I mean, in my case, I remember I graduated in 2005, very end of 2005, so we graduated about the same time. We're probably about the
yeah,
same age. Um, I remember in 2006, I was just doing a lot of stuff with golf, and I went and I watched this guy, Jeff Banasak, who was a
yeah.
physical
I remember,
therapist.
yeah, I know Jeff. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, right?
yeah,
And so he happened to be down in some minor league golf event, and he brought this trailer down there. I was connected with him through my boss at the time, Andrew Wasserman, and I went all the way down to Miami just to watch him, connected with them, and then just stayed in touch. And then all of a sudden, Jeff started getting into the PGA Tour events, and then at one point he was working with like I think it was like 5 of the top 10 for a short period of time, and then 2011 rolled around, he was getting so busy, he needed someone to help him out, and so I was traveling with him a little bit and doing that, and that was kinda my story, but it was really a lot of, just effort in getting and being in golf events and trying to connect with people that could do that. What was your initial, introduction into working with golfers? Was it applying for Dale Richardson's position
yeah,
there, or that was the first thing
yeah.
you did?
First thing I did, I always wanted to be a sports chiropractor. I guess my mom bred into me that work ethic's really important. Because I may as straight up say it, I wasn't the smartest student in college, but I worked my ass off. I have, in terms of like, I got a 2-1 degree. I wasn't the first class honors, but I mean, as soon as I came out of college, I'm like, okay, where is the holes and weaknesses in terms of being a sports chiropractor? So ART, I naturally gravitated towards. I think advanced soft tissue techniques is very important for a sport chiropractor. I don't really care what sport you work in. If you can't interact with the soft tissues in terms of, so it doesn't have to be ART if it's Graston or all the other named brands. You need to do something with the soft tissues because certainly from the sportsmen you see and I see and sports people, it's chronic myofascial tightness or whatever's there. I mean, even though we graduated in '05 and '06 and adhesions, whether they exist or not, look, we know that manual therapy input to the soft tissues definitely does something. We might know why, but I've seen great success in terms of reducing injury when you get regular treatment on soft tissues, joints.
Yeah, that's a big one. That was what was helpful for me for sure. And so then tell me about how we got started with, you started traveling a bit. I'd love to know also, how did you balance the travel for golf with your private practice and growing that as well? Was your wife pretty integral in that?
Oh yeah, it was the um, Dale offered me a job pretty quickly as the backup, which is fine because I mean, I had
Mm.
2.5 years experience. I said, yeah, I'm on board. Jesper Dahl got hired straight away. Jesper had 20 years experience, and Dale says, I'm keeping you because they can see the expanding. So I worked at that British Senior Open, and then I wasn't supposed to work anymore for that year. Just supposed to shadow a little bit, and then I ended up going to Spain for an event to cover 3 players, and then oh, I landed on my feet. There was an event in South Africa. Dale couldn't go. Jesper couldn't go. So it would do the NetBank Challenge. So back then it was called $1 million. So there was 12 players. Generally, it's top 20 players in the world. Really don't go. Well, maybe it goes that. I can't remember all the years, but effectively we had 3 players in that event. So I got to fly down, stay in the hotel, go to the pro-am dinner. I spent most of my days in the water park other than working with players. So that was probably the most luxurious event I got to in terms of not having to kill myself.
Yeah,
Um,
usually you're stuck in like a storage closet treating athletes in these golf
yeah,
events.
yeah. So I was treated like a king that week. So Dale's like, don't get used to that.
That's
Um,
cool.
and then from there, it ramped up pretty quickly because look, Dale had a really good reputation. So I'm guessing this thing you said there about Jeff, it's the connection. So you need to get your foot in the door, so it's connecting with the person. Um, so Dale started. I think I worked. It was very fast ramping up. I think I did 12 weeks the first year, so 2010, and then it went up really quickly. I did 20 something for 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. In terms of balance, there's no way I would have been able to travel without my wife. So Karen does pregnancy pediatrics, but she also does ART. And because we'd shared interests, she went and did the TPI medical courses with me because we went to World Golf Fitness Summit. You probably were there, 2010-ish in Orlando. So when we went, it was really, really good fun. But Karen used to see my clients when I was away athletes, and it made it much easier.
That's good. Yeah,
And then
that's obviously important.
fundamentally, we had our first son in 2015. So Karen couldn't quite see as many in 2016. So I was like, this is not going to really, work. And then the balance, the one thing I don't even think I've ever said in a podcast, I lost my dad when I was about 14 or 15
Oh,
in
okay.
around there. He
Sorry.
died, no, no, he died in 96. So when I have 2 boys now, so one's 7 and 4, but, um, Davin was born 2016. I'm like, do I really want to be away? I mean, at the end of the day, a plane could drop, you could get hit by a car. So it kind of,
Yeah.
you're the same stage as me. What do I really want to do? I mean, I love the job. I love work with them. I missed a lot of the bad Irish weather. Um, I didn't find it stressful in terms of working players. I wasn't like, once I got my competency in terms of working with the patterns. And I mean, I was lucky. If I would usually see the same player, maybe maximum of 10 different players a year in terms, because we were one-to-one privately with them. Um, I knew their patterns. I knew when something wasn't right, and I wouldn't even have to tell them. I'd clean it up pretty quickly and they wouldn't even know. So that
Yeah,
we
I
didn't
want to
let,
touch on that for a second because that's one thing that's fascinating about that position was that very few chiropractors get an opportunity to really just focus on a handful of bodies, right? And then get to
yeah,
know that body day in, day out, week in, week out, month, year, and really work with them. It's a pretty cool thing to be able to do. I did enjoy that as well. It's not that common to do it, but it does make your life a lot easier, right?
yeah. I mean, I can't begin to imagine like any of the consultancy work I do, either privately or unknown in terms of players, athletes in Ireland. I don't really need to, I don't want to advertise it. I'm not advertising in terms of, I want to see those players one-to-one because I want to keep that uh, quality care. I'd hate to be looking after a whole team. Jeez, that would drive me demented.
It would be
Like,
hard. The golf thing is definitely
yeah,
challenging. Now, I do want to segue a little bit, and I think one of the things you did and I did to get into this particular niche was to connect with industry transformers in that particular niche. And I'll give a little bit of a story too, even from this past weekend. I was at a Motion Palpation Institute event, sports summit there, and there's just there was a lot of industry transformers in the room and people that are doing big things. And you could even see some of the newer DCs or even some of the students had already started to build relationships with those industry transformers. And that's going to really serve a clinician well, not only from learning from them, but then you really become someone that people know and refer to you when people are in that area. And so that was big. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like the more you were able to connect with other industry transformers in there, did that help you in practice and just in your professional life?
I mean, I could first course I went to when I was graduating in May '06, Stuart McGill. I could it blew my. Yeah, can I swear?
Yes, you can. Yeah,
No,
we love
okay,
it.
okay.
We're America.
Yeah, Stuart McGill blew my fucking socks off.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd learn bits and bobs in college, but then when you see a real clinician, ooh, I'm like, holy shit, this is his attention. Stuart McGill was who was introduced to pretty quickly. Professor Craig Morris, who's retired now, he kind of introduced DNS when he came to speak to us in college, but it wasn't quite DNS then. So it kind of went over everyone's head um, in terms of, but then Craig and I connected later through ProGolf Health because Craig came in and I've met Pavel Kolosh. I was lucky enough to be taught by Dr. Mike Leahy from ART
Yep.
quite a bit,
Yep.
where a lot of the Europeans aren't now. I'm the instructor, but we come on to that later in terms of that. But um, when you get to meet, like when you put Mike and Stuart McGill and Pavel in the same room, yes, they might have different techniques. They will generally come to the same answer.
Yep. Yep.
You
And,
should,
and that,
I mean, and Greg, a mentor of us, Greg Rose, you shouldn't really know a profession the person's from. If they're that good, you shouldn't really know.
no,
And I know one of the industry interrupters in your group is Brett Winchester. Brett and I get on very well. I've been to his house. We visit each other. We talk to each other occasionally in terms of us the pond. But like Brett's that probably next generation, slightly ahead of you and I in terms of age, probably. Um, they just work on. I think that the paradox we have now for the young DCs that are listening is there is no overnight success. Brett and Pavel, Stuart McGill, Craig Liebenson, those guys did a lot of work in the trenches to master their craft. Where now, talking to Evan Oster about this, and
Mhm.
we were chatting and this is very relevant. The problem we have now is the young DCs are exposed to so much. So they're nearly getting hit with a couple of fire hoses and they're like, oh shit, what do I do here? So a lot of them are like going, okay, I'll do a little bit of ART one course, I'll do a little bit of TPR, I'll do this. But then they're literally kind of watering down instead of diving properly and immersing in the technique or approach. And you'll have all these certificates, partial ones, but you won't be any good. So that I don't
It's
think
so true. And I actually, Brett and I touched on it on one of our podcast episodes. I forget which one. He's been on a few times, but
the clinically
you know,
mastery one was very, very good. I think that was the general theme of one of them, but that one, every young clinician should listen to that.
yeah, and it's just interesting because like for guys like us, we're on that older side of things. There was only so many things, right? So I remember I got really good at ART and then TPI, but slowly and over years now I get some of these resume or CVs for preceptors, and I mean it's cool on one hand, right? Like they got a lot of
Mm.
stuff, Mackenzie and DNS and ART and Graston, and like the list goes on. But the clinical efficiency, and it's almost like you just got this jumbled mess of information in your head. And I don't know what the answer is, honestly. It's tricky, but it's like they've got this statue of David of information. They got to carve it out now, right? Like it's a big lump
Yeah.
of clay, and you got to carve out the David. Whereas for us, we were able to kind of build that stable platform and then add on top of it. And so it's
And
tricky,
without
no doubt.
distraction. without the
Yep.
distraction. Because social media is a pain in the arse.
Yep. Yep.
I know there's some people making money from social media, fair play to them, but you're not going to master your craft sitting your ass on Instagram or TikTok or anything. It's not going to happen. Phone away and practice with your boss in terms of, you know, getting feedback. Um, or another good friend of mine, Damien Maher, he's done some ART. He's a personal trainer. I mean, a very smart guy, lots of business course. He'll probably remind me a lot of you. But he said, Shane, whenever you're trying to learn something, try and talk to the horse and not the horse shit. So I know it. It's a very graphic in terms of that, but he said, Shane, try and go to the originator in terms of, and don't be eating the crap that's coming out of the horse. Because some people say, well, I've been to this and I've done that. And then you get this watered down version of something that looks nothing like you're like, oh God,
Yeah.
this is,
Yeah. No,
this is
it's
awful.
true. And that's why it's important to really connect with some of the leaders and have mentors clinically, whatever avenue you decide to go in. Not only is it going to obviously help you hone your craft, which is going to be a huge growth opportunity for you.
I have a good example. Back, I think Olympics was last year, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tokyo was last year. Through a chiropractic friend that I taught on one of my golf seminars, he got the head of high performance for Rowing Ireland to contact me. So unfortunately, that's about 2 hours away, but I said, okay, I was doing the masters at the time and I needed a little break in terms of traveling down. So, talk about terms of networking and reaching out to people. I emailed Stuart because I'd met him a couple of times in terms of doing his courses. I said, hey, I don't know anything about rowing.
Yeah.
I don't like rowing on a concept too. I don't know anything about the sport. And he says, Shane, funny enough, I'm doing a USA rowing conference this weekend. He says, sign up, my talk's on it. Perfect. So exactly. Should go on.
Yeah, so
Sure.
you have that expertise around you,
Yeah.
people that
Yeah.
you can get some, wisdom from or,
Yeah.
direction and guidance, which is huge. All right, docs, here is a new opportunity for you from Darcy Sullivan of Propel. She is our SEO specialist in helping out many chiropractors with their search engine optimization and making sure Google is finding you and getting you new patients. It's amazing how many new patients chiropractors can get and are getting when they do the SEO right and a few other things. And Darcy is offering a free SEO workshop just for chiropractors. And you can sign up for that at bit.ly/propelmcm. That is bit.ly propelmcm, modern chiropractic marketing, right? And so check out that link. And we're going to have you go over 5 SEO secrets to owning the first page of Google without buying ads. And Darcy's going to give that free workshop, 1 hour, to really help grow your practice and start churning new patients from the ever mighty Google, which is still king in the online marketing. So check that out at bit.ly/propelmcm for the 1 hour free workshop. And then now, kind of our last segue, you've kind of transitioned over the years too into one of those experts. You're teaching for ART. You have your own course. First, start about telling us about your course. I know pandemic has changed things a little bit, but tell us
Yeah.
about how you developed that, and then we can roll into a little bit of what you're doing with ART, and then I got a couple questions for you.
Well, in terms of my own seminar before COVID, what I found was like PPI is great and it's a safe enough referral network. But in terms of if I wanted somebody to get treatment, I would probably pick the ART database because I know what I'm going to get in terms of hands-on care. And I felt that there was a little bit of, okay, we theoretically know what to do, say SFMA or a TPI screen, but then I don't know what to do with all this data. And then people like to bash TPI, the screen does this, blah, 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 blah. But the manual therapy of side of golf is not taught anywhere. So that was the crux of what I did it originally by myself. And then Harry Cisse works with John Ram and a list of other guys. So we've done a couple of seminars together and then COVID hit, but I still think there is something missing in terms of Charlie Weingroff said a great thing. He said, if the technique brings you only to that technique in terms of assessment, then you mightn't win the battle. But if you have an integrated approach that gives you results, then that generally will lead to better care in terms of the athletes. So what I tend to do is I was like, okay, I'm not trying to compete with TPI because I think the screen's good, the SMA is good, but there's a big fall. Okay, I get all this data and I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
So in terms of the manual therapy input for the golfer or amateur, but so I'm very lucky in terms of my private practice. I see amateur golfers. I now for since 2017, I look after Ireland's elite junior golf under 18, under 16 Irish girls. And then I did my master's dissertation on injury surveillance for that I cohort in it over a year in terms of what the impact of COVID. Um, so I've at the again asking the tour guys that just do. Harry and I were one of the few, and Troy Van Beese with the other one that would probably a lot of the guys that stayed on tour. That's a very different situation to the guys that work on tour and then mostly, and then we're working in private practice. It's kind of a because the work you do with the professional golfer is not necessarily going to transfer or be the best for the amateur golfer that's stuck at a desk for 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a completely different golfer.
Yeah. The, and then I was very lucky, 2000, probably 9, 10, ART has been a big part of my practice. I use it probably 85% of the time with patients. I haven't seen many patients that I can't use it on just to adapt the tension that you're using. So I teach for ART in Europe. Again, we've seen changes too. We had huge classes before COVID, and then everything transitioned online. ART didn't want to do it online, and DNS is a dynamics neurostabilization, which your listeners will definitely know about. It's funny, those two things are two things that need to be taught in person, but then a lot of the young graduates that graduate during COVID are now assuming that they can learn things online. That is brutal crap. It's not good. We need to get our young generation chiropractors back to deep, because you go to a seminar, put your phone away, you're listening to an expert, and you're getting instant feedback because you can't hide in the DNS or ART seminar. And I even when I go and teach or I assisted this year, starting to assist a little bit for DNS. It's a totally different scenario because
It is.
I can't if I watch 8 hours of DNS today, I'll probably apply some, but I'm going to get distracted. But if I'm in person there, it's going to turn to it's going to turn it's just going to be much better, and that's how
Yeah,
we would have learned.
I want to touch on that too because, and I'll probably go on a little bit of a soapbox right now, but we're running into that. We're seeing that where a lot of these students or even year one, year two DCs, they just had too much stuff virtual, not enough stuff in person. Some of them have dragged that out too long where they're not getting back in person, and they're behind the eight ball, and they really got to get out from underneath that, and they need to start doubling up and getting into seminars, like spend a little bit of money, travel to, DNS, MPI, ART, all these, whatever way you're going to go, start getting to these seminars. I've actually attended a few recently. We hosted ART in our office back
Mm.
in February, and it was great to see we filled that up. I was at the MPI Sports Summit. I was at the MPI Foot and Ankle in Whitefish, Montana. Even, I'm not practicing now anymore, but I'm still kind of getting out there. And it was good to see people starting to get out there, but I still think there's too many young DCs and students that are just not getting the reps in person. And it's going to be a really tough uphill battle for them if they don't start doubling it down now.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, we're in practice a lot, like 17 and 18 years.
Mhm.
I learn every day.
Yep.
And then the one thing that's consistent now, COVID's changed everything forever, I think, in terms of, but I would say that the stress levels that I see in my patients and athletes now compared to when I started, whoa, there's no
Yeah.
unplugging anymore. And the tricky bit, like even clinical mastery, the trickiest population for any of us to treat as DCs is that 40 to 60-year-old female. And
Yeah.
I'm only learning now the hard way in terms of, okay, if their hormonal balance, their nutrition, their sleep, stress is not, it doesn't matter what I do to them. And like
Yeah.
I use it because I had a lady come and see me. She had bilateral Achilles pain. I'm like, okay, this is systemic. It's not unilateral. It can't really be musculoskeletal. And I was like, I sent her to a women's health expert and put her on medication in terms of, and within 2 days the pain was gone. So we always have to keep getting better and better. I think the thing that TPI, the one that my biggest takeaway from TPI, and you're probably the same, is you need to build a team around you. You can't be an expert in everything. So you can't, you're saying there, I would like the young DC to pick one or two things and be an expert in them.
Yep.
Double down, as you say there, just double down on that. Don't go to the next shiny turd
Yeah.
because it smells better. And there was a stage where I was going, but this is new, flashy. No, no, just double down. If a
Yeah.
technique stayed longer than 10 years, then you know it's the right one to, like ERT. He's been around a long time.
That's
DNS.
a yeah, great point. Did you know Peter Tia, MD? He's got a
Yeah,
podcast.
I just downloaded his audiobook.
Well, so yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. I've been listening to it. It's actually a great book so far. I actually started on the last chapter, which was his emotional health issue
Yeah.
that he had, which I didn't realize. But this is someone that's on top of the world, and even like he had a breaking point early COVID, and he outlines how he had actually go away and like seek treatment for his emotional health, which was fascinating. And I think we all can get a lot out of that particular chapter. But then he has a whole chapter on stability, and he really talks a lot about DNS, which was cool to hear.
There is a really good interview between Peter Tia and Mike Grantella.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
there's another there. Do you know what? There's some underestimated guys in terms of, I know a lot of people would know the front and center guys, but somebody like Mike Rotella, very quiet, goes about his work. I've been lucky enough to Robert Lardner from DNS. That guy is badass, but
Yeah.
he works in some small office in Chicago, happy as Larry. Yeah, people need to realize if they're looking for Instagram followers or the being famous, that's bullshit. It's not going to last. Um,
No, you gotta have the substance for sure, and that's what's something that you've been able to do, which is pretty cool. And I wanted to kind of go back a second because you talked about it, and I didn't get a chance to touch on it because I'm really intrigued by what you're talking about. Because yeah, like I remember being in TPI years ago, and actually it was TPI Medical Level 3, and someone had asked that question, was like, okay, we're getting all the screenings, we're getting the correctives for the screenings. When I took TPI Medical 2 and 3, it was actually taught by Gray Cook, which was
yeah,
cool. And someone asked the question, like, "Okay, what about like the treatment of things?" And Greg Rose had a good answer. It was like, "Look, we know our role, and it's in the understanding of golf injuries. It's the assessment of golf injuries, and we know as you're already doctors and physical therapists, we trust that you have good skill set. But the reality of it is like you said, we can't trust that every TPI person has good skill set, but at least TPI is kind of honest, but like they're not going to do the manual, which is why they've done certain things with ART. And then
no,
obviously, like you've made that connection because it's so important to have the assessment side of things because there's a lot of different assessments out there. And I would put TPI in the assessment category. And then there's the manual therapy. And you can obviously put manipulation in there, soft tissue, right? And I think that's important that you've done that and seen that. Have you started to see more chiropractors and physical therapists working in golf, doing a lot more soft tissue, a lot more of that type of stuff as well, manual therapy?
I would say most of the guys that work on tour that I know of, there's a couple of new guys out, but I'm more or less know they've all at least done one ear similar, to be honest. They dry needle. And look, things phase in and out, cupping, tempering. There's lots of different.
Yeah.
To me, it's all interaction with the soft tissue work. I mean, in Ireland, we can do whatever we want. So I dry needle a little bit, but I mean, yeah, I think, look, you can't treat a golfer if you don't have soft tissue work. I don't,
Yeah.
85%, 80% of it's myofascial wind up of the tissues, playing the most asymmetrical, repetitive, explosive sport in the world.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool to make that connection between your assessments and the manual therapy for the golfer. Obviously there's going to be some strength conditioning coaches, golf fitness people that are going to do just fitness. I think there was a chiropractor, maybe it's Jay Davies. I could be getting the name wrong. Where he
Craig
tended to
Davies.
Craig Davies, yeah.
Yep.
A lot of fitness stuff, right? But for the most part, the Troy Van Beesens who you mentioned of the world, like they're doing a little bit of everything, but the manual is still a big part of what separates them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the manual opens that window.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then
I
last question for you, how has teaching improve your private practice? It could be things like obviously you're a better clinician maybe because you teach, or has it helped you get, a lot more providers know who you are and then refer people to you? Like, what are some of the benefits of teaching that you found?
Yeah, I think even backwards with last one, the referrals to some of the
Yep.
students that I've taught in Ireland will send their more trickier cases to me in terms of if I'm doing the ART or assisting with DNS. From a teaching point of view, I mean, I spent a lot of time with Mike. Alan Woods now are in charge of ART Europe, so they have hundreds of I'm in and around 65 to 70 ART seminars as a graduate, so it's still high, a lot higher than most. But Alan's done hundreds. Mike's done could be close to 1,000. I'm teaching with Alan in May in Belfast, and I'm teaching lower. See, they've changed the ART fundamentally for the better now. When you used to go to the ART, you used to play the video and you do the protocol, video protocol, video protocol. Now we've gotten rid of the videos because the students have to watch it. The pre-coursework, so they watch the video, and then we do the palpation and we do the protocol palpation protocol. So it is really deep immersion into that. It's a lot more intense. It's a day less, but I've seen huge benefits from having taught a couple of seminars with the new format, and that's what they're likely to continue because getting that feedback from people that have a lot more experience. That's why I teach. Uh,
Yeah. That's
and
awesome.
generally, I just send all my associates to do the courses too. Particularly courses with 3 letters:
That's
ART,
awesome.
TPI. I know MPI. I wasn't like I know of TPI when I was graduate, but there's only so much you can do. MPI used to come to, or still do, comes to Bournemouth in the UK,
Yep,
the
they do.
Anglo European College of Chiropractics. Um, Look, all those things are integrated methods in terms of what we can do. But I love teaching too, because the one thing I've always trying to get better is, and I don't think we learn in college, I mean, it's in terms of what you do in terms of marketing. We reached out, I reached out to you a couple of months ago. I said, hey, I can't get my hands on your book.
Yep.
I needed it for my associate. It was it's come highly recommended. The business side of I wish I had, well, I've always been gravitated towards business books, but communication, take the business side, because people generally don't like sales. They feel all slimy and whatnot. But
Yep.
I think when you teach and you have to teach a student that maybe just doesn't get it, the communication side of it is
Yep.
like, now I probably don't say as much to patients. I try and build rapport, but I generally spend a little bit more time listening in terms of what's going to motivate them and why the hell they're sitting in front of me. Because you
Yeah.
can, I think that saves the battle there. Are you there just because you want to be out of pain, or I just want to lift my grandkids, or I want to be better and I want to be more healthy now that I'm 40. I want to be healthy at 50, 60. So, um, I mean, there's lots of communication methods. There's Cialdini's books. There's uh, Never Split the Difference from Chris Voss is very popular. Motivational interviewing has exploded which has been around for a long time based on what I've seen. But that's now sexy for all professions.
Yeah. I think, just with the business side of things, I heard it put well not that long ago. A lot of chiropractors think of business and they think of, the sharks and the snakes out there and high sales tactics or pushy sales tactics. But what it means to be good in business in practice is having a really good patient experience, having a great company culture, communicating very well, and then, yeah, being able to understand the nuances of business to make accurate decisions. It doesn't mean putting yourself first and not the patient. It doesn't have to be that way. And that's something we're always trying to change the narrative for chiropractors around is like being good at chiropractic business can be a very important thing to get results, even not just, pad your bottom line. And so that's something I wanted to touch on. The other thing was, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cal Newport. He's written a lot of books
Yeah,
on deep work,
deep
but
work. I've read Deep
yeah,
Work.
yeah,
Yeah.
great book. But he's also really working through this concept called deep life, and he's going to write a book about it next year. But people that are listening can Google up Cal Newport deep life, and he's got a blog article on it, and he talks about the kind of 4 C's of a deep life, and one of the C's is craft. And you mentioned that earlier. There's other ones like community and constitution and stuff. And I'll let the audience dive into that if they want to. But he talks about one of the things that can make someone not happy in life is when they don't have a craft to work on and feel like they're making progress in it and it's serving people and themselves. And And so you've done a great job of your working on your craft, and I'm sure that's helped you build a deep life, which I commend you for. And to tie that in, and I'll give the mic back to you, but I like to have industry transformers on the podcast. Not that every audience member on here that are chiropractors is aiming for that, but it just shows you that you can really, be in a small town in Ireland, or
Mm.
like you mentioned.
Same as Brett in Troy,
I was just gonna
I think
say, yeah,
Troy.
Brett's in Troy, Missouri, right? Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to be in New York City or, London, to get, past that and do big things. You have done big things, and so I think chiropractors listening can take that, and if they wanna do big things and be an industry transformer, awesome, but even if they're just trying to be a pillar of their community with their craft and dominate that community within a particular niche, it can be done as well. And that's why I wanted to have you on here so that people can see, like, you work hard, you have a really guided path, and you've honed your craft over years, and it's served you well. So I wanted to thank you for that, and thank you for coming on today.
No, I mean, it's really important. The one thing I always say to my patients is, even though I've treated top 10 players in the world in terms of golf, some of the best golfers ever, um, one of them is going to be a Hall of Famer this series. He's going to be a Hall of Fame next year. Um, I learned my craft with him, learned a lot from him. But as I said, I've treated celebrities, singers, billionaires, millionaires, but I don't really care, because I think in terms of the deepness, I will treat somebody that is a janitor. I might be like somebody has a low level job or admin or whatever it is. They get the same level of care that I would have given to these guys. I think that's how you know a good ethical, not thoroughly ethical word up, a chiropractor that's attention to detail focused and it's all about the patient or athlete, give exactly the same care to Jane, the granny, as to the elite multi-million pound billionaire athlete that comes in, because there shouldn't be a difference.
Yep.
'Cause
I
I tend to
agree.
treat all my patients like athletes, and it shouldn't change. I've seen too many therapists where, oh, big time guy. And that's probably why I didn't feel under pressure when I worked with any high net worth individual or athlete, because I
Yeah.
treated them the same way. Just went
Yeah.
about my business.
And I think it's a good point too, just for anybody that gets an opportunity to work with someone of stature, treat them like a regular person. Try not to be too awestruck. Try not to
Yeah.
ask them weird questions about, their professional. It's like, I remember my
Yeah.
grandfather always told me a story. He had an opportunity to go fishing with Jack Nicholas. It was more of like a handful of people, and it was a unique opportunity. And this was many, many years ago. And Jack Nicholas said one thing. He's like, "We can talk about fishing all you want. I just don't want to talk about golf because it's my
Yeah.
job and I'm fishing. I just want to enjoy myself, right?" And so you got to, read the room with some of the people and just treat them like a regular person, and that's what will build trust with them.
Yeah, I mean, when I went into, like, even back to when I started, I didn't know any. I play a little bit of golf now. I understand the game, but um, you don't have to be great at the sport. You're going to treat the athlete, and you just need to do a little bit of work in terms of biomechanics, understanding the load, understanding what that player might be doing. I mean, technology helps us now. We can film anything, slow mo, slow it down, put it at this angle. Um, the I very rarely talk to players about golf. It might be, hey, good round. And to me, the most tempered golfers that I got to work with, you would know if they shot 80 or 61.
Yep.
That's the, the mental side of I learned a lot being around players. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing I'm most grateful, like Padraig Harrington, I got to work with him on and off for 10 years.
Mhm.
We still chat occasionally. I'm going to see him speak on the mental performance with a sports psychologist at an event in next month. Um, gee, I never said it to him after, but I said it to him recently when he was very good. I said, I learned a lot from the mental side of preparation, journal. Like, to be world class, you need to do this in journaling, mindset, treat people. And the other thing too, but they're about the treatment side of ours, but you also learn about a lot about people when you're, say, if you're at dinner and how they treat the waiter or waitress. I think that, I mean, it goes out saying it's put in multiple books, but I mean, I used to waiter, so I'll clean the plates in front of me. I don't care if it's the fine dining place. I'll always tip when I can.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Shane, I really appreciate your wisdom and your time today. This was great. I'm finally glad we got to connect in this, and maybe we'll meet. I think next summer I'll be in London for quite a bit, so we'll have to
Oh,
catch
good.
up and
That's a
we'll
short flight
maybe
for me.
yeah, there you go. Maybe I'll attend an ART seminar you're
Yeah.
teaching. So
Yeah.
thanks again for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos, we help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things, and we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.